Sonnet's June Maker box gave me the blues this month, in a good way. When I opened up her box, I was absolutely inspired to pull out the blues and earth tones and play around with it. I also loved the crock pot paper as well. So let's take a look at what came in the box and what inspiration I got from it. I'm Kathy with Waste.Not.Upcycled. I'm a full-time teacher, a part-time reseller, and upcycler. And I'm excited because every month I get Sonnet's Maker Box, which comes with so much inspiration. Each month comes with exclusive papers from Roycycled decoupage. This is gorgeous. And then the painted photographer rice paper. And then it comes with matching paints. Oh, there's a napkin that comes every month. And here's Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, 2 shades of DIY, and then 2 shades of the Fusion Mineral Paint. I was immediately drawn to the blues in the box. I pulled together a couple items that I think I'm going to be using for my projects, and I'm ready to go. For project 1, I'm going to be using that big giant wooden box, and I'm going to be painting the whole thing with Sweet Pickins Milk Paint in navy blue. Now, milk paint comes in a powder form, and all you do is mix it equal parts powder with equal parts warm water and stir that together. Now, as I begin to pour this in and stir it, I look over that big box and I feel like I just don't have enough milk paint. So I'm literally just going to finish it off and dump the rest of the bag in here. Now, I'm not very visual spatial. Like when it comes to putting dinner leftovers away, I'm the one who grabs a container that's either way too small or way too big. We'll get to that a little bit later. So my milk paint had been sitting for a good 10 minutes, and it's time for me to go ahead and paint. And when it comes to hardware, I'm not a huge tape person. I like to use foil just to cover it up. I'm going to go ahead and paint this whole giant box. I paint the top. I'm going to go ahead and paint all the sides. I pretty much painted everything in 2 coats. And I did not do the inside. However, after painting the whole box, spoiler alert, I have a tremendous amount of paint left over. So in powder form, milk paint can last indefinitely for shelf life. But then when it comes to once it's been mixed, it needs to be used within 24 hours or refrigerated. Look how it's chipping. I love it. So as I was saying, it can be in the refrigerator for a couple days. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sand it. And one of the best things about milk paint is, I wish you could feel this, it is buttery soft once you have sanded it. So I use my finger sander to sand over the whole thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a coarser sandpaper and I'm going to distress those edges all around the whole box. So I'm going to take out my microfiber cloth and clean it and make sure everything is good to go. And whoops. And then I'm going to get to the fun part. I absolutely love Royce's Crockery Masterboard. I think I called it a crock pot earlier. Anyway, you know what I was talking about. So her crocks look amazing. I'm going through deciding which ones of these I want to use on the front of it, and I'm going for just this distressed look. So I cut out all the pieces that I'm going to use for this. I'm going to decoupage all of these onto the front. Now, I am cutting it out, but I'm going to actually use the water method because I want it to have a distressed edging. So all you do is take a paintbrush with water, and when you pull it apart, I make sure I put pressure on the picture so it doesn't rip. But basically, it just tears that paper, leaves little fibers on the end, and it gives it just a rougher look. I use this method for all of the different papers that I'm going to be putting on the front, and then I am layering and trying to figure out exactly how I want this to look. And I do know that the box is going to be opening, and that is okay. I want it to be on both sides of it. I definitely know that I want my pieces to layer over one another, and I'm only going to do the front part. I'm using my Fusion decoupage and transfer gel. I go through that Fusion transfer gel like crazy. I actually had to add water to it, so it's pretty watery. And then I always spritz my decoupage paper before I put it on, do a starter strip, and then I'm going to go ahead and smooth it on. Now, there are going to be a few wrinkles, and that's okay because I want this to look old. So I'm going to use that same method for all of my papers. I'm going to go ahead and spritz it. I'm going to put that starter strip down, glue it down, and then I always go over it with the glue. Now, you'll notice that line where the top would lift up. I want to go ahead and I want it to cut across while it's wet. It's much easier. So I just use my fingernail for that. So when it comes to this last paper, I make a pretty big mistake, but it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and glue it down, and then I'm gluing all around where there's no paper just because I want that glue uniform. But I lifted up that latch, and then without thinking about it, it popped open. So when it comes to those kinds of mistakes, I mean, I could either rip the whole thing off or pretend like I meant to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and embrace this mistake, and I'm going to fix it up and pretend like it meant to look that way. No one will ever know, right? Except for all the people who watch my YouTube video. Anyway, it ended up being fine. It wasn't a bad mistake. And I'm going to let this dry. I actually let the whole thing dry overnight. When I came back the next morning, I wanted to put on the finishing touches. So remember how I finished up that milk paint? Well, I went back and I grabbed that container and I had a little bit left because I used all the other paint on other stuff. And I mixed it with water and I kind of used it to go over all of those white edges. And I mixed it throughout just to blend in that paper even more. Now, as I was dabbing it, there were drips running and I wanted it to do that. And remember how I put glue over the paint as well? Well, I like how it kind of had a different effect on the paint. It definitely made it look older, and I was able to put blue over that as well. One thing I did notice, this needed to be fixed. It looked brand new. To make that latch look older, I used Fusion Antiquing Glaze and just took a cloth and stippled it on top of it. It looked way better. So that wraps up this project. Definitely stay tuned to the end to see how everything fit together. I'm really excited about project 2. I'm actually going to do a couple things for this project. So I got these brushes at an estate sale for free and had lots of that milk paint left over, so I decided to paint them with the milk paint. I liked the wording on this, so I brushed it off so that could be seen. Now, I love the idea of using these as kind of a photo holder. But instead of using photos, we're going to use something from Sonnet's Maker Box. I gave these a couple coats of paint and used a fine brush to really get in the grooves. I let these dry for a little bit and I'm ready to move on to the next part of the project. So I wanted each of these brushes to hold 2 different size pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out some frames that I'm going to be gluing Royce's decoupage paper, the botanical decoupage paper, onto the back of. Actually reusing the paper that my IOD stamps came in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick out the different pictures that I wanted to showcase. So I was really drawn to the bluebirds and I went ahead and cut them out. Now I'm using the decoupage paper that came in Sonnet's June box, but you can do this with anything from old nature books, or you can even use greeting cards, anything with fun pictures to create. I decided I also wanted to put a pop of florals in there, and while I was cutting that out, I also realized like that other little label on the side would look cute overlapping it. So as I mentioned, I've been going through that fusion gel so quickly and I'm out. So I decided to add Elmer's glue, mix it into the container with a little bit of water, and use that to decoupage these onto the cardstock. Now, if you want your picture to pop, you would do it on the white side, but I wanted to darken a little bit and I knew that pattern would go through, so I flipped it over and I'm using the dark side. I really like how that pattern is popping through. This turned out pretty neat. So I'm going to continue the same method of just decoupaging on these papers. So as I was gluing this one on, I did notice like that Facebook, Pinterest, all of those advertisements, and that wasn't quite the look I was going for. So I took it off and decided I was going to try it on the back. Nope, way, way, way too light. Okay, so I'm going to improvise. I think I'm going to take it off, and then I have some extra decoupage. I'll just layer it over. And that worked perfectly. For this floral one, I'm going to go ahead and lay this one down, and then I'm going to put that next layer over it. I set these on the side to dry, and then I wanted to add a little bit more detail to the brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and sand them down with my finger sander. Again, I love how soft they feel after you sand that milk paint. And as I look at these, I decided I wanted to add a little bit more. So in my last video, if you didn't see it, I took a piano and I've been upcycling it. And I used the IOD transfers, but I only used the florals and I had leftover lettering. Now, I have no idea what these say. I'm guessing it's something that has to do with florals. And I did not have my transfer stick nearby, so I grabbed the next best thing, a flat tool. Transfers are very easy to use, and the nice thing is that I want this to be roughed up, so it does not need to be perfect. But basically, you lay your transfer down, and then you go ahead and rub over it, peel it as you're doing that, and then you saw me burnish it, which is just making sure that it sticks to the project. So I added this transfer lettering to both sides of each brush, and I was actually careful to make sure I didn't go over that other lettering that was on there, but I am just so happy with how these turned out. I just love how this lettering looks, and I cannot wait to put those pictures in. These are really coming together. The pictures have dried. I am just going to go ahead and trim them up a little bit. And these florals are just a little too crisp for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in that same Fusion antiquing glaze that I had from earlier. And I'm just going to put a little bit on each one just to darken it and grind it up a little bit. Time to see how these look together. This looks really cute, but I always feel like everything looks a little bit better with a little bit of florals popping in. So I always grab at the Goodwill bins florals, and I'm going to go ahead and just pop a few sprigs in, and I am so happy with this one. This next brush was not as easy because these bristles were really soft and the pictures were not staying, so I had to get a little creative. So I actually snuck in a couple little paper clips so that they would stay in and then the paper would grip onto those. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add some florals, I think, to this one as well. That wraps up project 2, but stick around till the end to see how everything looks together. For project number 3, I got this wall pocket, but it was uneven, so I needed to fix it up. I had plenty of that navy blue Sweet Pickens milk paint, so I was going to go ahead and give it a couple coats. And this had a really nice crackle, but I'm actually going to be going over it. I'm going to be using the Painted Photographer's Rice Paper Willow Blues, which I thought was perfect for this. Again, I'm going to be using that water method, but to get the wispy look. But rice paper is a little bit thicker, so I need to add a couple layers of water. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to carefully rip it out. Now, Connie from the Painted Photographer is an amazing artist. Typically, I like to frame her bigger pictures that come in Sonnet's Maker Box. And then with the 3-ups, I'll decoupage one and frame another one. But for this one, I thought it would look so perfect on this wall pocket. I'm using the same method. I'm going to go ahead and spritz it and then use my glue to decoupage it down. Now, earlier I mentioned when you're decoupaging paper on, if you want that picture to really pop out, then you would do it on a white background. But I'm really kind of sticking to that like blending in blues kind of look. So I'm going for that darker look with this. It's a little bit more moody. I let this dry overnight and it did brighten up a little bit. So I am going to be using that Fusion Mineral Paint, the Midnight Blue. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use this as a wash. So if you want like a sheer paint and you just want it to kind of go over a painting or something like that, you can add water to it. And obviously the more water you add to it, the lighter it's going to get. So I'm going to test it out. That's way too dark and add a little bit more water to it. I tested that out and it's a little bit lighter. I'm going to go ahead and just on the bottom, I'm going to use that brush. I did also pull a cloth to kind of play around with it. When I first started out, I kind of panicked a little bit like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But when I grabbed that cloth and I decided to go a little bit lighter, I kind of brushed around, and my goal again was just to kind of make it a little bit darker and blend it in a little bit more with that wall pocket. I like the effect I was getting way better with that cloth. So I still have just a little bit, a light amount of that yellow peeking through. So when it comes to putting florals in this, I'm going to go pretty simple. I have these dried flowers that I got at Goodwill for like 99 cents. So I'm going to play around with these a little bit. So this definitely needs like a little bit more. They're kind of sparse. So I have a couple other things nearby. I'm going to grab some more decor to add into this and layer it a tiny bit more. I still think it needs a little bit more, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit wire to this. So when there's 2 hangers on it, I know you could hang 2 nails in the wall. I cannot, I'm not good at that. So what I tend to do when I have frames or anything else that have 2 different areas, I like to tie a wire or string or something to give it one point. And that way, when it gets hung up, you don't have to worry about like measuring out 2 areas. So I'm going to go ahead and string this, and then I'm going to go back to my florals and add a little bit more. Popped off the fake looking leaves from this yellow sprig and then I just added it. So I'm pretty pleased. I think the focal point is really the florals on the wall pocket. And this is pretty simple enough that it lets your eyes kind of look at that pretty picture. Project 4 is a pretty quick one. I had already painted this metal tin with white milk paint, and I was excited to add in the napkin that came in the maker's box. So napkins can be used as a decoupage as well, and it has usually 2 plies. Kind of took me a while to get it off. So I went ahead and I took off that bottom ply, and this was like a perfect fit. I was so excited. So I'm going to measure it and go ahead and cut it. Since you've already watched me decoupage in my past projects, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it out, and then we're going to skip to the good stuff. It's dry, and I'm going to use that Fusion Midnight Blue paint again in a different way. So I'm going to bring my cloth out, and I'm going to use just a touch of that blue paint, and I'm going to pull all the details out. So paint can be used to pull details on furniture or home decor, and all I'm doing is dipping it very lightly and then rubbing very lightly again so that all those raised parts are just getting a touch of that paint. What a difference it makes just adding that paint to the details. It really pulls it out. So I am going to seal this with Big Top, and then I'm going to let you guys take a peek at how everything pulls together. I feel so honored to be a part of Sonnet's creative team. Definitely take the time to watch the other creative team members' videos. They are truly amazing and creative women. And June was the 1-year birthday for the Maker's Box. She's added some fun additional surprises. She not only changed the Maker's Box packaging, but she's added a digital press, and then now she has a Maker's Creative community. I'll put a link down below for the creative team playlist that you can watch, as well as my affiliate link if you're interested in bypassing the wait list and getting Sonnet's Maker Box every month. I so appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. I would love to hear your comments and your thoughts on anything that I created. I hope you were inspired. And if you're not yet a subscriber, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to join me in my journey. I usually put out a video on a weekly basis. Thanks again for taking the time to watch.